So over the past few weeks, gold and silver have taken center stage. Everyone is talking about gold and silver. But while all the attention is on that, a penny stock, a technology company focused on the mining industry, has been quietly gaining ground. And yes, I'm personally invested in the stock with an average price of 49 cents, as you can see here on my screen. Now, besides me, do you know who else is invested here? The Rothschilds. Yes, the Rothschilds. Once among the most powerful families in Europe, they are now major shareholders in this company. In any case, today we'll talk about the $60 million microcap company I'm invested in. We'll do a brief overview of this company, and in the end, we'll also discuss why the stock could still be a 5x or even 10x opportunity from current levels. Now, before we begin, as always, nothing in this video is investment advice, okay? And with that, let's start. So first, what does this company do? So today's company operates as a SaaS business, providing software for the commodity sector. You see, even though we live in a highly digital world, the commodity sector, especially the mining industry, still operates mainly using email and Excel spreadsheets. The problem is that this creates a lot of inefficiency and makes fraud much easier, as you can imagine, right? After all, just imagine how complex the logistics of a company like BHP are. I mean, you have thousands of tons of ore that need to be transported, first by train, then by ship, sometimes to the other side of the world. So these are definitely not simple operations. And that's why it is absolutely essential for commodity companies to digitize their operations, to make them more efficient. So this is the first problem today's company solves. So instead of managing everything through emails and Excel spreadsheets, mining companies, for instance, can now see how their operations are progressing in real time, all through a single platform. In fact, this has become increasingly vital, given the growing frequency of global supply chain disruptions. So in summary, today's company essentially offers an operating system for the commodities industry. Now, the second problem this company addresses is traceability. You see, over the past few decades, the ESG trend has gained a lot of momentum, and as a result, many countries are now requiring companies to track the origin of all their raw materials. So for instance, as a commodity company, now you need to be able to say whether the gold you extracted comes from countries that use forced labor, or how much CO2 was emitted during its production. But of course, you can only do that with a robust traceability system, which is exactly what this company offers. So, with their platform, you can simply track everything from mine to market, being able to tell all that. So these are the main problems this company's platform, this company's software addresses. And though this company is still very small, with an enterprise value of only around $60 million US, the truth is that dozens of market leaders are already using its platform. Codelco, for example, which is the biggest copper miner in the world, but Codelco is using this software to manage 50% of its entire operation. Vale is another user, along with BHP, Southwire, Sumitomo Corporation, Zijin Mining. So yeah, this platform is for real. Now, after all, what's the name of today's company? Now, before the big review, don't forget to leave your like, okay? And now that you've done your part, it's time for me to do mine. So today's company is called MineHub, and it is listed on the TSX Venture in Canada, ticker MAGB, and also in the US, ticker MAGBF. And by the way, if you're interested in penny stocks, I left the brokerage I personally use in this video's description. In any case, today's company is called MineHub, and as I said, my average price is at 49 cents USD. Now, why do I think this could be a 5x or even a 10x opportunity from the current levels? So that's what we're going to cover now. And let's recall that nothing in this video is investment advice, okay? But you see, even though I really think MineHub will be a successful investment, the truth is that today, this company has very little revenues to show. And obviously, that means this company is operating at a loss. For instance, as we see here, Over the last 12 months, MineHub's revenue stands at only 1.5 million Canadian, while its operating expenses stand at 7 million. In other words, this company is operating deeply in the red. Now, if that's the case, why the hell am I invested in a company like this, right? Because, as I always say, investing is not about the present, but about the future. In fact, investing is actually about whether what you think is going to happen is already priced in. In the end, that's what investing is about. In any case, before I explain you my thesis for MineHub, let me invite you to subscribe to this channel. Okay? Here we talk about under-the-radar microcap stocks and also about portfolio management. In any case, that's how I think about MineHub's valuation. You see, as we've just seen, MineHub's revenue stands at only 1.5 million Canadian. Now, that's almost nothing, right? But that's because they're still in their early stages. And that's also because currently they have only 12 paying customers. However, I think many more paying clients will arrive. And I say that because MineHub has more than 200 companies testing its platform already. And many of these companies are market leaders such as Vale. And according to the CEO herself, 70–80% of these leads could eventually be converted into paying customers. For her, it's a matter of when, not if. Now, if only 20% of these 200 companies that are testing MineHub's platform become actual paying customers, we will be talking about 50 total clients, something around that. So that's why I think they will revert the situation, reaching at least break-even in the not-too-distant future. But okay, I still haven't explained why I believe MineHub could be a 5x or even a 10x. To explain that, first I need to show you this slide. So as we can see here, MineHub's total addressable market stands at about $600 million. However, this number only refers to the markets where the company is already active and operating, as we can see here, right? If you add these new verticals here, though, zinc, lead and nickel, agriculture and chemicals, MineHub could potentially generate over $1 billion in revenue. Now, obviously, I'm not assuming that the company will capture 100% of that, right? But let's say they capture 10% of these $600 million here. Well, in that case, we would be looking at a company with around $60 million in revenue, right? So the question now is, could MineHub trade at, for instance, 5 times revenue? I certainly believe it could. So in that scenario, the company's market cap would need to go to about $300 million, which from today's levels would represent a 5x return. And what about 10 times? Could MineHub deliver a 10x return? Well, I think it could. All it would take is for the company to capture 10% of that $600 million opportunity and trade at 10 times revenue, which in my opinion is completely achievable. However, in that case, at a 10x revenue multiple, we would be looking at a $600 million market cap, which in other words would represent a 10x return from current levels. Now, to wrap up this video, I want to cover 2 more things. First, I want to comment about the Rothschilds, and then I also want to cover what I'm doing with my position. Am I buying more shares? Have I sold any of my shares? So, I also want to talk about that. So first, is it true that the Rothschilds are invested in the stock? Yes. As we can see here, the Rothschilds own about 8% of MineHub. On top of that, another shareholder worth mentioning is Sprott Asset Management, a highly respected asset management firm focused on commodities that owns about 5% of MineHub. Another major shareholder worth mentioning is Abaxx Technologies, another very interesting tech company operating also in the commodity sector. But just for you to know, as we can see here, Abaxx owns about 18% of MineHub shares. So yeah, there are some very serious players backing MineHub. Now, to wrap up today's video, let me share what I'm doing with my position. So as I mentioned earlier, my average price in MineHub stands at 49 cents, and I'm actually planning to buy more shares. However, my strategy is to buy more MineHub shares using a limit order, which is positioned at around 50 cents. Now, why did I choose this strategy? Because you see, I'm already quite satisfied with my position in MineHub. So my rationale is pretty simple. What I'm thinking is, well, I will leave a limit order at my entry price, and if the stock drops, well, then great. However, if the stock continues to go up, that's also fine. So I will pretty much be happy either way. And well, if the stock goes up, regarding the uninvested capital, I will simply allocate it to other stocks that are also deeply undervalued. In any case, my limit order is still open. Now lastly, regarding my position, regarding the shares I actually own at the moment, so I believe there's still plenty of room for this stock to run before I start thinking about selling any of my shares. So, in other words, I'm far from planning to sell my shares anytime soon. My plan is to hold them. So that was a brief overview of MineHub, a company within the commodity supply chain that the market is largely ignoring while everyone is focused on gold and silver. MineHub is not a gold or silver stock, however, it certainly belongs to this supply chain. And if gold and mining stocks are set to go up, I think MineHub has a strong chance to gain a lot from this trend. Now, if you want to know more about this company, about MineHub, I suggest you watch this video next. That's it for today, and see you next time.